So introducing here the beautiful Denise Davis Gaines, and we've just been briefly speaking about how her yoga journey and really life journey, I guess, in a way, began in the year of 1993, which is a special year because that's when I was born. So that just goes to show what a beautiful connection was made. And I think it's also the year that, one of my favorite albums came out with Alanis Morissette. So it was a good all-round year, I think.
I remember the album.
Yes, Just Like a Pill, was it? Not Just Like a Pill. That's like I think that's a mixing like Pink and Alanis.
Yeah. Alanis, like her album was a real, I was friends with the choreographer.
Jagged Little Pill. Sorry, I remembered it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was friends with the choreographer. Clarence Ford, a friend of mine, actually was a choreographer for the video for that, like for one of the videos for that album. And I think that's how I got introduced to her in the first place. Like I, kind of heard her on the radio, but I wasn't really paying too much attention. And I was at a dance class with Clarence, and we're chatting after class, and he was talking about, yeah, I did that video. I'm like, and I worked for City TV and Much Music back then. And it's like kind of like MTV. It was Much Music is kind of like MTV, and so it was interesting. I think she was in the station a couple of times that year as well.
This already just sums you up. I feel like I don't even need to tell a story about this beautiful soul. It just goes to show just how many interests and talents you have. And while your background is in health and yoga, I think it's all inclusive, and we share a very similar view with it being a holistic approach of like, it's not just a yoga pose, it's not just a meditation, it's the way that we eat, it's the way that we think, the way that we speak, the way that you interact with your kids as well, like what we were just saying of surrendering and them being the teachers in your life. So I would love for you to just speak about the story of who Denise is and how you came into you, and whether you've always been this beautiful and grounded, or whether that's kind of been, you had that catalyst moment where it was like, my life needs to change, or whether it's just kind of ebbed and flowed and felt really natural the whole time.
Oh, I think like a lot of people, thank you, Lauren. You're incredibly generous, right? These conversations are so important. I think that having these conversations allows us all to connect in ways that we couldn't before this format was available, right? And I want to say, like, I think that as a teenager, I was full of angst like everybody else. And I'd come from a pretty abusive background. And by the time I was 17, 18 years old, I started to get introduced to meditation and mindfulness. We didn't call it that back then, but my psych professor was introducing us to not only meditation, but psychedelics and all kinds of other interesting things. And I recognized that I was angry and I didn't know why. I really honestly didn't know why I was so angry all the time. And I was consciously looking for ways to not feel angry. And I probably was about 19 when I met this really great guy, Steve, and there was this awesome one night stand. And Steve gave me this book called Be Here, Be Now by Ram Dass. And I read that book, and I didn't know it in that moment that it would be the corner that I turned that influenced my whole life. And so I'm pretty sure that it's the book that inspired me to become a vegetarian. I knew I was angry and I didn't understand it all. And Ram Dass talked about adrenaline. And I thought, I've got enough adrenaline for a football team. I probably could use a little less adrenaline in my life. If not eating red meat means that I have less adrenaline, maybe that's one of the keys. So I started eating vegetarian, and it was easy. I don't know if I had the right blood type or the right attitude, or I don't know why it was easy, Lots of people find it hard, but I didn't find it hard. And I wasn't doing it like for great, smart, altruistic reasons. I was like, maybe I'll be less angry if I eat a
Oh,
vegetarian
wow.
diet, right? Simple. And I thought, okay. And you know what? It just felt good. It felt clean. And I was, my hobby was kind of fitness at the time. And I started getting fitness certificates while I was getting an undergrad degree in philosophy. And then I did a degree in fashion. And then I was working, in the television industry and did a whole lot of things. But I was also teaching in fitness centers in Toronto. And I probably taught 15, 20 hours a week of aerobics. I worked full time for a television station. I designed and manufactured a line of ladies' clothing. And I was busy and exhausted. And I went to this really cool doctor, Dr. Rona, and I connected with him through someone else, put me on vitamin therapy, and it started to sort out a lot of other things in my life. And I had more energy than most three people that I knew. And I get up in the morning, go teach fitness, go to work, go to my showroom down the road and get my staff organized, come back, do my job, go out, teach fitness after, go like design shit at night, right? And it was
Yes.
kind of this really, it was fun. Then I got pregnant 1992, around the same
Oh,
time your mom would have been.
yes,
93, it all came to excuse me, can I say fucking stop? It all came to like this
totally.
screeching halt. It was like, how do you even get a shower, let alone, have three big things going on? And I recognized I didn't want to work for the man, and that was leaving the station. And I loved teaching fitness, and I had just met the woman who had become my yoga teacher. And I went and did my yoga teacher training, and I haven't looked back since, Lauren. It's just been, I taught at Laurier, Wilfrid Laurier University here in Canada. It's a pretty big university. It's like, top 10 university in Canada. They were invited me to teach there as an expert in my field in yoga and in physical fitness and group exercise and yoga therapy. And that started in 99. And I opened a yoga studio in 99 and done all, it's just been this like crazy, interesting and challenging, I got divorced in 2002. My ex-husband became violent and it was, but I feel fairly certain from a violent childhood, not doing all the work, stepped right into the relationship that would turn violent, probably because I was attracted to the same energy. And so if I had anything to say to anyone else who's going through that out there, is to do the work, go and talk. It's talking to people and doing your work and recognizing that you're worthy of great love, right? And it's that process that helped me to be brave enough to walk out with my three kids and be a single mom for the last, since 2005, I guess. Yeah, 2005. And now they're all wonderful adult humans. I have one grandbaby and I'm married to a wonderful man who has 5 grandkids, and we're not married. We live together. And, if I hadn't been willing to give up ordinary and tough, I wouldn't be living this incredibly beautiful life. We sail. It's another passion of mine. I'm a sailor. You mentioned that you live in
Secret
something harbor.
Harbor.
Sacred Harbor. I was like, oh, my like dealy bobbers went off going, Sacred Harbor. That sounds amazing. We love the water. Love being in it, on it, over it. Just water is my saving grace too. So yeah, like here we are. My oldest is 27. He just dropped his first pop song, Lauren. You're gonna have to check him out.
I
Connor
am,
Seal.
because I write music as well. This keeps coming up, and I feel like you are my soul mom. I feel like your son or your girl or something, we probably have the
Oh
same birthday. Are they Geminis by any chance?
no, but my youngest is my brother is a Gemini,
Uh-huh.
and my oldest is Cancer, the same as me. My daughter is a Leo, and my youngest is
Uh-huh.
a Pisces, and my love is a Pisces. But
Mm.
here's a funny story. Maybe you'll get this too. I had a birthday party one time at my yoga studio in Cambridge, and I invited everyone that I knew that was a Scorpio. 35 people showed up. I have 35 Scorpios. I wonder what I did in another life, right? to like have 35 scorpions.
Whoa.
My mother, my father, my grandfather, my ex-husband, an ex-boyfriend, and like at least 7 of my closest friends, and probably 5 of the yoga teachers who've done training with me, who've stayed with me for like 5, 7, 10, 15 years. They're all freaking Scorpios. So Cancer is good with Scorpios. You know, we're kind of cool with the intensity of a Scorpio, but wow. Yeah. Gemini, I love. My brother and I are like this. Gemini and Cancer are like just we come to our souls have come together to do this work, right? It's easy.
It's
Easy.
how, and like
Gemini,
how we've come together, obviously, like immediately when we jumped on the chat to say hey to each other, it was an instant knowing. I'm like, oh, this girl, it's been a little while since we've had a chat, but how are you, Denise? It's just like, I don't even feel like calling you Denise feels right. I feel like I just want to give you a big hug and call you mum. Like it's that sort of soul mama feeling. And it's such a,
absolutely.
yeah, it's such a beautiful gift. And it's, I think it's because you've put in the work, it's the trait that you emit. Like I'm sure that I'm not the only person that has said that to you. I'm sure you get many of your kids' friends that call you mum, and that you just, I'm sure walking into your house, you've got a beautiful vegetarian mama dish cooking, or you just want to nurture, and that's the water element. And like I am the same as you. Like I guess when I'm visiting you in Toronto or you're coming here in Australia, we are going to be on the water because that's my place where I feel most grounded. It's a place where I feel is my yoga. Like I feel like that's when I go into a state of oneness, and I'm literally not thinking like about any of the cares in the world, because it feels like something shifts inside of me where it's like it's all just right. I can't explain it.
You don't have to. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We've just come through winter here, and
Wow.
we're getting the boat ready to go in the water, and the pool cover's coming off any day because we've had an early spring. And that's between the hot tub and the pool, and Lake Erie is just down the road, and the boat goes on Lake Erie. And the winter, in the past, we didn't get to this year, but we take my little boat to the Florida Keys. And it's definitely one of our bucket list things to do the circumnavigation. So we thought we'll do the trip between Lake Erie and the Bahamas first, and just see how it is motoring and sailing, because we're sailors as opposed to motorers. We really love to be under the power of the wind and the water. And if we do well with that and everything goes well, it might be the following year we might head your way, go find out where Sacred Harbor is anyway, right? Oh
Did you
man,
just say Sacred Harbor?
that's what you, isn't that what you, where you,
It's Secret Harbor, but I am going to call it Sacred. That is so beautiful. I'm sure for some of the people, or
Sacred Harbor, yeah.
that is
Well,
like a
secret
double
sauce is
meaning.
sacred. Yeah, that's gorgeous. I can't wait to see where it is. I'm going to look it up as soon as we get offline together. And so how did you get interested in yoga?
So I was around the same age as you, and I reckon it was, you know, it's the whole planting the seed thing. You've turned the questions on me, but that's cool, because I think it's nice when that comes unexpected. Of like, I think I was around 18 or 19, and had a really good upbringing, like loving family, loved my sister and my brother, and all of that kind of stuff. And my brother was someone who was always, I guess he's got a background in like addiction, and was the trouble child, and he was a child that mum gave the most attention to in a way. So I was the youngest, as I still am the youngest child, nothing's changed. I felt like I was so connected to, and still am really connected to, my mama, and I just wanted to make sure that she was okay, and I would like take on the responsibility of what she would do. And so there was a point where I got super unwell, like mentally, and then it turned into like a physical control my food. obsession, and then I lost a whole heap of weight, and I was really quite in a dark place. And it was like, you know, that transition of leaving school where I had that significant aspect that wasn't getting met anymore because I wasn't getting the attention at uni. That, like, lecturers don't tell you that you're doing good, and it was like, oh shit, like I don't know how to healthily love myself or give myself attention so that I'm not craving it externally. And so then my cousin got me into yoga. She said, why don't you just come to one of the hot yogas with me? And so I started going to those, and my body just felt amazing, in an amazing way, that not when I was obsessing over food or obsessing over skipping for like an hour. It was like my body could equally get this movement, but when I'd go into Shavasana, it was like, oh, finally you get rest. Like, you're allowed to have rest, right? Which is something that has never been, I've never watched people around me indulge in rest. Like, I think in my head it was like rest is laziness, so I never let myself rest. And so I started from a very physical aspect, and then as I progressed and became a paramedic, as we were talking about, I had that as a way to balance me outside of my shift. And that, and then it turned into, oh, yoga's not just movement. I don't know when that moment was, but I think it's just been like a gradual progression, like it is for a lot of people. Like, you think you might be doing it for one reason, but the seed was planted very, very long ago. And I think I would consider myself that I've always been like an old soul or a little spiritual being that might not have known quite what it all meant when I actually first entered the physical yoga realm, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of the things we teach in teacher training, is that it doesn't matter what you come through the takeout window for, you get the fries. It's
yes, I want the fries.
You want fries with that? And they're like, no, I'm good. You come out and you go, oh, I got the fries, right? So whether you come in because it's a way to control your appetite, or whether it's a way to control your mind, or whether it's for stress, or no matter what reason you arrive, it's like this synergistic thing that just starts to, permeate everything. So thank you for telling me. It's beautiful. It's beautiful that it's been. It never gets old for me to hear people's journey, right?
And that's the whole, like, it's cool because that's the whole reason for this podcast. Like we were saying, it's like, why am I doing this? It's like to hear the beautiful message behind the beautiful soul. And like we were saying as well, this isn't over. Like, now it's not, oh, I did my yoga training and I'm finished, which is how I've previously thought about so many things in my life, of like, I'll do that course and I'll get that done, and I'm always thinking of like, how can I get this done quicker, and how many more things can I fit in? And I put that down to being a Gemini partly, but my gorgeous best friend asked me, he said, so what next when you complete that? And it just kind of was like, oh shit, I don't know this.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's what I love about you. And what we were saying is that you get more excited the more that you don't know, because the more that you start to learn, you go, oh, that's like a mic drop moment, or I never understood it that way until now. And now it makes me look to this book or to this podcast or to reach out to this person. So I'd be curious to know from that Ram Dass book who your teachers became, like physically or on a book level, and who they are now. Because speak to that.
So many things have happened since that book. what I realized that Ram Dass had been with me for a long time already. The night that I read that book when I was 19, the night that my grandfather died when I was 15, Neem Karla Baba Das sat on the end of my bed, but I didn't know who he was then.
Wow.
And I sat up and talked to him about my grandfather. He looked a lot like my grandfather. So at first I thought it was my grandfather's ghost wrapped in a sheet. I was like, why, puppy, why are you in a sheet? And he just sat with me and held my hand. And I was
Oh,
like, this is weird. At first I thought I was dreaming. And then I I was sitting there going like, this is, it felt so real, Lauren. And he didn't use words to talk to me. It's like I could hear his voice in my head. And I really thought it was my pop. I thought it was my puppy, like it was my puppy coming to say goodbye. And I thought that he looked different because of being in hospital and other things. And when I read Be Here, Be Now, and I saw Neem Karla Baba Das's picture, I was like, I recognized him. And I recognized that he'd been with me for as long as I could remember. As there was, like I said, I came from a pretty abusive upbringing and probably, you know, died and left my body more than once as a child.
yeah.
And went through some pretty traumatic things. And there was always this sense of this person with me, like that I talked to even as a child. And when I read Ram Dass's book, Be Here, Be Now, I immediately recognized Neem Karla Baba Das as my teacher and
Mm.
just accepted it and didn't really understand how important that was. But then I would get involved. I got involved with transcendental meditation and that particular Maharishi and the Beatles Maharishi, and then I got involved with Sri Chamoy, who was a really cool, another Indian teacher who came from India to the West. And he, at the time, he wasn't involved with it, but he eventually got involved with ultra marathons and that sort of thing. And running was one of the ways I've always managed how I felt as well. Like if I can run hard enough and long enough, it can melt down anything that's going on inside me. And so I really resonated with Sri Chamoy's teaching about world peace, and I learned about the chakras and all kinds of interesting things. Like he led a meditation at the Metro Convention Center. There was 2,000 people there in 1982, and my brother, my brother had come to visit me, and I made my, like teenage brother go to this a crazy kind of hippie meditation sit in for world peace thing, and then from there I guess my movement teachers were dance teachers in the beginning, and it just kind of like my meditation and movement were, on a course to collide. And the teacher that I had in Toronto, Susie Diaz, was trained in Kripalu yoga. She'd been to India and she had degrees in dance and had done a lot of work in Feldenkrais and Alexander technique. And so we were teaching in the same circles, and I was subbing for her. She was subbing for me. And she said, why don't you come to my yoga class? I'm like, yeah, okay. And I went to her yoga class and I was like,
I'm in.
this is, this is how my body's meant to move. And
Yeah.
so I did training with her. And then I did intensives, and like for 8 years, I went wide.
Mm.
And I did intensives in every style of yoga I could get access to. I'd had Connor while I was doing that first training. And I worked with, let's see, Richard Freeman, who's an Ashtanga yoga
Oh,
teacher.
yes.
Right, early days with him. Lilias Folan, like the cable TV yoga teacher from the 70s and 80s. I grew up with her, like 7 o'clock in the morning eating my Cheerios, doing yoga with Lilias on the TV. And I went to an intensive with her, and she's like, when you say that mama energy, she had that same mama energy for me when I was like, I guess I would have been about 30, 31 around that time. And then I worked with Anna Forrest and
She
Diane
came to
Dev from Chicago.
Australia.
She's an interesting character.
She's really interesting. And I love that she's got the Native American background. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, well, and speaking of that, I do have Native heritage on both sides of my family as well.
I have
My
it on
mom's side,
one. I think we
Cool.
are. I feel like we're connected.
Like,
It's, yeah.
right? Absolutely. I kind of get that. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that so after about 8 years, was having children. So I had Connor in 93, Liv in 95, Owen not till 2000. But from 93 to 2000, I was getting the Kripalu catalog and I would circle programs and go, one day I'm going to go to this program. And it was like the Sears wish book or something, like the Kripalu catalog for the programs. I was just so excited that one day I would get there. And then 2002, I finished nursing Owen, and I said to my family, I'm going on a retreat. I'm going to Kripalu. I'm going for continuing education. That was my legitimization of like having to leave my young family for, I think I was going for 4 days the first time, like a day to get there, 2 or 3 days there and a day to get back. And I didn't want to leave my family and I wanted to leave them. And I was so glad when I left them, and then I missed them as soon as I left. But I got to Kripalu and I worked with that time with Yoganand, Michael Carroll, who Pranakriya, he was the director of education and teacher training for Kripalu for a long time. And he turned me on to so many things that I hadn't even come near at that point. Mm-hmm. And then I did the Inner Quest Intensive with Aruni a year, like 6 months or a year later. And they asked me to come back this year. So then for 16 years, I spent 3 to 5 weeks a year at Kripalu and either volunteered, facilitated, staff managed, and production managed that Inner Question program. And then a few other people asked me to help with programs and asked me to facilitate in programs. And then at the same time, there were other things going on, and I was digging a deeper well in Ashtanga and studying with some of the senior Ashtanga teachers. And I guess after so there was 8 years of going wide, 8 years of going deep into Kripalu and Ashtanga. And I realized that what keeps me coming back to my mat, Lauren, is the practice of Ashtanga yoga. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm heartbroken because of what's happened with all that. And what kept people coming to my classes was Kripalu yoga. It's because of how I understood the body and the therapeutic nature of the way we approached yoga. And all that time that's evolving, I'm doing somatics with Eleanor Criswell Hanna and embodied yoga, and all of these other things are kind of layering into all of that. And I started teaching at Wilfrid Laurier and Phys Ed and Ken, and I opened a yoga studio, and I got divorced, and I started teaching at Conestoga, and I taught, like I said, vocational fitness. And so I went from, being a stay-at-home mom with a stay-at-home kind of a business that I could run around my kids to having 3 kids and being a single parent and trying to study yoga and teach yoga and juggle it all. But I think that it's yoga that made it easy. It's the practice of yoga. The fact that I get up before my kids get up and I do my practice, and it gave me the wherewithal to be able to manage all of that, and facilitate space for my kids to be who they needed to be in their lives. And when COVID hit, when the pandemic hit last year, we already had the plan to go digital. We were working on it already. We were creating video content and realized how bad we were at it.
Really awful. We all at the beginning,
it was terrible. I go, okay, so that was really awful. Okay, and people think it's okay, so all we can do is go up from here, right?
Send me that footage immediately.
Right? It's just really terrible. And we, we tried some Facebook stuff and it was horrible. And then I discovered filters on Zoom. Like, doesn't my skin look perfect, right?
I reckon you do have beautiful skin though.
But part of it, it's a filter. It's a filter, definitely a filter on Zoom. Just saying that it's.
She's beautiful, guys. If you're listening or watching, if you're watching, you'll just know. But if you're listening, you have like almost like that Italian vibe. Like, I don't know, you've got some sort of like Greeky. I'm not using my words to my justice at the moment. But basically, not steering away from this filter situation because the camera situation is just bizarre. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm just like, whatever, we are who we are. When I look at you, you're beautiful. When you look at me, I'm sure you see somebody different than who I see myself as, of like, what am I looking
Beautiful.
at?
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Um,
You look like you could be one of my kids.
I
Absolutely.
I feel like one of your kids. It's so weird. Like even
Right?
just your progress in life. I'm like, you sound like my mama in so many ways, and I'm adopting you as my mama. And
Absolutely.
but like what I actually heard from you speaking there is that you've got such a vast toolkit, and that's how I see yoga, as like one part of the toolkit that we use as a way to navigate through life. And another part of that was you discovering all of these teachers, which you still, like, you use them as resources, but I'm sure we have a very similar viewpoint that in our lifetime that we're finding these teachers to come back to our own inner teacher. And, you know, if we are always looking and comparing ourselves to maybe what they have, or how they are, and it's like, oh, I want to be like them and I'm never going to be like that. It's like you're missing the point of like, aspire to have the qualities that they have, but also remember that you have a message to share here too. And it sounds like you've come to a point where you're acknowledging that you don't need to do any more courses. Like everything that you have is within you, but you're just like, no, but what if I wanted to? Like, what if I wanted to do that training and go, oh yeah, of course, I remember how to do that. And I feel like doing courses for me is like, it's a way of, oh, that's right, I remember I did that. And it's like, because I believe in past lives, and I'm aware that not everybody does, but I honestly feel that when I meet someone or I do a course or get a certificate, I'm like, I was only doing that to remember that I've done it before. It's so bizarre.
It's a true story, though. You're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
every now and then a teacher comes along, Lauren, where it feels like when you're just hanging out with them, it feels like your consciousness is expanding just being in the same room, right?
Totally.
And when those teachers come along, it's, I don't know if it's a remembering, if it's they're the same soul group. I don't even know. I don't feel like I need to put a name on it. I
Right.
just sit, that sitting in it and going, okay, yeah, we're on this journey together. Thank you. So grateful. And what the person who's coming to mind the most is, as I was talking about him a lot today, is Thomas Ashley Friend. His spiritual name was Namadeva, and he was my Sanskrit mantra teacher. And he's the teacher that just opened the door to my voice in a way that I didn't even know was possible. And I didn't realize how much I hid my voice before I met him. And Sanskrit mantra freed my voice in a way that I don't even have the words to tell you. It just, I've chant now in front of hundreds and thousands of people without even thinking about what I sound like. It's just my heart coming out through my voice and that devotion coming out through my voice. And it's, I can hear his voice and his teachers, and they're all just coming through to the people who need to hear it. And I can feel it resonating. And so it's when teachers like that come along that you realize that uh, there'll always be teachers for us, and there'll always be people to share that with if we choose to. If we're listening and paying attention, our teachers are trying to find us.
Girl,
They're
you've just
like, right?
spoken to what I was going to say, and I forgot until you said it in that moment of when you were saying you thought it was your grandpa on the end of the bed and it was Ram Dass, and it's like you said I wasn't communicating with words, but it's like you were communicating on a level, and this is like that energy that you get. Like I get that from you right now. I get it from other people. And it's amazing that the energy can even come through from a computer screen, which I think a lot of people were resisting. You can feel that somebody's energy, and I think that speaks to mantra of the highest form. Like people say, speaking mantra, get it into your physiology, all of that kind of stuff, and I'm all for it. I love using my voice. I love hearing and singing mantra songs in general, but I think when it becomes a conversation that is silent, that is forever playing, and you can hear the melody that is like the undertone of love or the universe or peace or groundedness, whatever it means to you, I think that's when you've reached a different level. And I don't want to say high or low, it's just different. It's and I think that shows to me that you were connected to mantra from a much younger age than you probably were aware of at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not a singer. I have 3 musical kids, and I sing, lullabies to them as kids because I didn't care what I sounded like. But like in church, I'd hide my voice underneath other people's voices, or I'd try to hear someone who could hear it in the same way. I just didn't have that ability to hear music the same way. But like mantra seems to use a different part of my brain than pure music or songs and lyrics. They don't, like, I can remember long freight train mantras, no problem. This, I can hear Mahadev's voice and I can repeat them exactly as he taught them to me. And yet I've heard the Beatles songs my whole life, and I definitely could not repeat all the words to any one Beatles song. And they're not that complicated. I choose that because it's not complicated, but it's just whatever part of my brain that sits in doesn't seem to remember it. But mantras, it's like they were there, and he
So
just
for
unveiled.
for people who might be hearing or watching and going like, what is mantra? It's that weird chanting thing. Mantra is just like Sanskrit words put in a form for a particular message, whether it's for healing or whether it's a certain just a certain message that it's trying to put out there, whether it's to be inspired or to heal or to resolve grief or to clear the illusions. And what they often speak about in the yogic terms is that when we pronounce or speak a mantra in Sanskrit, it actually speaks to the essence of the word. So I can look at the window behind you and call that a window, but if we'd all called it a bird like 20 years ago, we'd all call it a bird. So it's like, but what mantra does is that the meaning of that pronunciation or the sound, that doesn't change. Like, I don't know if you want to give that any more grace. It's making sense in my head, but I don't know if I'm doing a disservice by complicating it.
Not at all, and it's important to speak so that you resolve your own understanding of it, right?
Yes.
And that's important. As you speak your words, you start to find your understanding of it by sharing our words. And mantra is part of Nada yoga, the yoga of sound. And mantra is, whether it's thought, whether it's voice, it's their struck and unstruck sound, right? But they all emanate from thought, right?
Yes.
So thought comes and something strikes your vocal cords. And even if you think a word, it taps on the roof of your mouth. Just think the word Mississippi and feel the roof of your mouth as you think the word, right? So there's a tapping that's happening, right? So a long time ago, when the language of Sanskrit was evolving, it was a code language. It was never a language that was a colloquial language that was spoken colloquially in a community. It was a code language that the Brahmanical caste across the continent of India could talk to each other. And they created this code language based on vibration. It was a vibrational nature of calling the thing based on what you were trying to explain just now, of like, if, a person is, what is the sound of the vibration of that? So it's like the impetus that creates the matter. In the beginning, there was the word, like a Christian variation of that. Almost every culture around the world has this idea that sound came first, whether it's creation, whether it's the evolution, the Big Bang theory, is all sound first, right? And so sound and thought before it, thought is the thing that creates the struck or unstruck sound. And that everything has a vibration. Sound has a vibration, and that vibration goes out into the universe. Like if you drop a pebble on the top of a still lake, the vibration goes out. It doesn't stop at the shore. It's just where we stop seeing it. And it's the same with the sound of your thought. It has a vibration that's going out. It's one of the reasons why yoga invites us to saucha, that have clean thought process, right?
Yes.
And Christians bring up their kids to believe God can hear your thoughts. Other traditions have, similar ideas. It's like we control our thought process so that we're not sending out a negative vibration. The negative vibration fills the nadi channels that run up and down Sushumna, so Ida and Pengali, right? Fill with the winds, the Vayus, and they intersect around the Sushumna, which cuts up. So happiness, joy, bliss moving through Sushumna, right? Angst, anxiety, stress, irritability, it's running through, it fills the wind up, which knots and creates the knot, these samskaras, the granthis, the knots that get. So when we do mantra, we sing, it forces wind through Sushumna.
Yes.
When we make sound, any kind of singing, it gets, when you sing, you let go of all that. Like, how does it feel when you sing?
Oh, it's like being in the ocean for me. It's next level of like I think I described something in another episode of like, it feels like you're hitting a tennis ball in the center of the racket of like, I can't describe it. It feels full, but it feels like nothing. And it's just like, this is amazing.
Right? You're clearing this vessel. That's you. That's your subtle energy is moving when we sing, or for some of us, it's mantra, right?
Yeah.
And so mantra in Sanskrit's got this magic, and not to burst anyone's bubble, but there's teachers like Swami Vivekananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. They have this idea that, you know what? If Sanskrit's uncomfortable for you and you don't want to learn this weird language and it feels too out there, feels kind of like other religio kind of feeling
Religio,
to it.
yes.
It's like, so use English. So they came up with English. They came up with English mantras and chants and songs. And this simple song, and again, I can't do it any justice, but if we started to sing, sunshine, you are my sunshine. You make me happy
when skies
right?
are gray. Yes.
How can you not feel good?
You just have to move from side to side.
You know what? It's a feel good song.
Yeah.
And we sing sad songs and they move our emotions. We sing angry songs and they move our emotions. Right? Songs and chants and, cheers. They're all coming from the same place. The Christians sing Amen, or they sing, there's one, I love gospel music too.
Oh, girl.
I don't find any difference between gospel music and Sanskrit mantra. And I wouldn't put myself in the category of Jesus freak, but I'm not offended by him or the philosophies around him either. It's about letting everybody express things the way they want to express them, right?
In a way that makes sense to them. It's like if someone tried to tell you that your way wasn't right, or in a way that didn't that wasn't a teaching, that worked for you, that's never going to stick. It's like the Beatles song that you say, it's like you love them or whatever, or can appreciate them, but it's like it's not sticking in the same way that mantra or Sanskrit does. And that's because you're uniquely who you are and they're uniquely who they are. And you know, if they're not, like, they might actually have something to teach you. And that's my way to approaching things, of that's really different and that's challenging my beliefs, but please tell me more about that, because it's either triggering me or it's an opportunity to have a little bit more insight so that I can have either empathy or compassion, or know how to ask them better questions, or really know how to light them up. Because I think that, you know, when we talk of things like spirit or energy or religion, people can so quickly go to, again, the thought process of, oh, that's a cult or that's a this, and that thought process is creating their speech, which then their speech creates their actions, and their actions create their karma. And it's like that, to me, is like, it just speaks to the whole thing of what Ayurveda speaks to, of all illness starts in the mind. And I know that that can probably be a pretty far-fetched idea for some, but I truly believe that. Like, to me, that makes so much sense. If we're thinking well and we're kind of going, I'm going to have a good day today, you're going to be looking for ways or speaking in ways that are going to make you feel good. And if you're thinking, oh, I'm so tired, I've got so much stuff to do today, and oh, this XYZ happened and it's terrible, blah, 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 can guarantee you your day's not going to be great. And it's going to be that like attracts like, and you'll find someone else who misery loves company, and they sure as hell will keep you company and trauma bond with you over all of the drama. It's probably drama bonding, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's, I think that if we shift our gears, everything around us shift, and not to oversimplify, either. Like it's,
Yeah.
but I think that ultimately, part of what yoga has the capability of doing is helping us all to stay open-minded and stop othering people, things, and take personal responsibility. Listen with both ears, observe with both eyes, and create space for people on our planet to have their own beliefs and their own practices that are sustaining them. And as long as they're doing no harm to anyone else, we could just stay out of it, right? We could just
Totally. And if we took
mind your own business.
labels,
Yeah.
like even the label yoga, that in a way for me, it's something that I was talking to my friend about. It's like I get so passionate about yoga, but that's a label that I've put to a practice that needs no words. And you know, we need words in order to communicate with other humans and to exist in this world, in this lifetime. But I also believe that there is that part of us that is connected without any words. It's like my bond with my sister or my mum, or people that I've just so deeply, like, I don't know, you're just one with them, and you know what they're thinking, you know what they're feeling, because you're tuned into like every part of them. And I think that's what I love that yoga does for me. It makes me feel more connected to the parts that feel authentic to me, and the ways that I can connect to people. And while I term it yoga, it's like it's a lifestyle. And so if I took the word away and said, what do you do, who am I, it's like I would strive to be a master at this thing that I believe is yoga. I don't even know, I feel like I'm rambling now, and this is like I would love to know what your perspective is on that, and labels, and what yoga means to you in a way that we can maybe wrap this up. So, because I feel like we could probably chat for a million hours.
There's a thing we were working on today too in Tibetan Tibetan heart yoga
Mm.
about, they were using the rose in the Manipura center and the diamond in the rose. And the original text has the lotus, but they're using rose because they're teaching in the West. And Westerners happen to have more experience with roses. They both come out, like roses come out of dry dirt. They grow in the desert. They grow, our roses do the best out of the front where it gets all sun all day. The earth around it is kind of dry and crumbly. They don't do as well. They don't have as many flowers in the darker, damper spots in the garden, right? And lotuses come out of the mud, right? This big
Yes.
lotus coming out, and have that meditation on the lotus. So does the flower care whether you call it a lotus or a rose?
Mm.
Does yoga care whether you call it yoga or tai chi or running training or fitness? It's there's a team at Crapello did a live piece on Instagram this week too, and they're kind of their core piece this week on their live offerings is it's all yoga. It's all
Yes.
yoga. Cooking is yoga, relationships are yoga, practice is yoga,
Yeah.
cleaning is yoga, the garden is yoga. It's like and nothing is yoga. So it's all yoga
Yes.
and nothing is yoga. And I think that when we get hung up and think it's about us in some way, then we've mistaken our ego for something like more important than it is. And we've forgotten that we're made up of the same stuff as the Purusha of the cosmos.
Yes.
Like, we're made up of Prakriti and Purusha, and the earth is Prakriti, and the core energy of earth is Purusha. It's the Purusha of this planet, and we're part of it. So
Mm.
othering and separating gender, separating races, separating, it's all of that separate. Like part of, I think that why we're here at this moment is to stop the othering and recognize we're all part of one larger Prakriti and Purusha. We're coming into manifest form so we can do the work of uniting our essence and dispelling the myths of separation. That would be, again, Swami Kripalu's teaching. And I think that, we're coming out of these guru lineage based teachings where they were flawed because the thought process that they were somehow above natural law. And sometimes a practice of yoga can make you feel very powerful. And we misidentify that with being somehow special, and we're not. No, because you're an evolved yogi doesn't make it okay for your 41-year-old body to take advantage of some 16-year-old body, regardless of the gender. And that, no, you're not special. Actually, you're responsible. And you're
Oh,
responsible for the
yes.
well-being of all of those in your care. And whether it's your children or whether it's our energetic relationships, we're responsible. And if we take advantage, that's damaging us as much as it's damaging the other person and the whole planet, right? So whether it's how we hurt anything. So one of the first tenets in the Ashtanga philosophy is nonviolence.
Mm.
And if we live by that simplicity, it sounds, and maybe I make it sound simplistic, and our friends who love to eat bacon with their breakfast might be like, what do you mean nonviolence? It's like, it's a choice. I'm never going to criticize anyone for the choices that they're making. I'm just going to keep trying to make the ones that I think can make for a better life, for a better family life, for a better community, and make my decisions as part of trying to be responsible for this planet.
Mm.
And if I make a difference, then I've done something good with my life that at the end of the day is all I could hope for, really, is to have lived a good life. And what's that old saying? Slide into home base, like covered in dirt and worn
Mm.
out. Like I want to wear this package out. And we race sailboats, and I'm throwing myself around the boat like I'm 22, and I come away going, oh my God, I got to do yoga because my body hurts. Right? But
Yes.
thank God for the physical practice of yoga. And, I watch, the challenges that my kids go through at different times. And I'm like, okay, thank God for meditation. Let's let it all go. Meditation, right? Like, let's do meditation together. And then I watch my kids like, Mom, what do I do? Or watch them meditate or practice yoga, or like call on something that they've witnessed. And that to me is like, okay, that we did something good. We did something good by living a life of making those kind of choices so that they influenced at least the people in my own family, if not our bigger family. So I don't know, the long-winded answer. I'm not sure that any of us really know. And we're all, as Ram Dass say, we're all walking each other home, right? Let's
That's
just walk each
beautiful.
other home, and I'll listen to you for a while and thank you when you listen to me, and interrupt. I can interrupt and be interrupted equally well, like it's okay.
I
Right?
appreciate that because I feel like when I chat to people that I love or get excited, I do tend to get super excitable, and really it shows me that I need to practice listening more, and that kind of sums up my point of what I was hearing when you were speaking, is that um, it's a practice wherever we are, and it's a congruency when we're not on our physical mat, or we're not, it's like showing up when you don't feel like it. It's showing up when you feel like it, and it's like you said, it's everything and it's nothing. But it's like when you're walking down the street, you treat that person that you walk by as you would your child, and it's remembering that you don't know where they've been or where they've come from, and you don't know where they could come into your life from that point forward, because there has been so many magical interactions. Like I even feel that with you. I don't know where our friendship is going to go moving forward, but it could be something huge. Like, do you know what I mean? Of like, if I chose to sit back and hold back on what I want to offer, then we wouldn't have met in this lifetime. And that's okay, because that would have played out how it needed to. But I felt this huge calling to do this podcast and to start putting it out there to people who I'm seeing the work that they do, and I'm like, I literally do not know this person from a bar of soap, but I want to. And yeah, and people like yourself who get back, it's like, wow. And it's this remembering of, I'm being congruent, so the people that are coming through it hasn't felt difficult to do this. It's like, to some people it might be like, that's weird or that's random or whatever, like whoever might be thinking that or not, who cares. But it's also a practice of me, like you said, speaking what means, what life means to me, speaking what I want to ask to people. And that in a way is probably like clearing something for myself, but it's allowing the person on the other end to clear the channels in the body, to get out a story that might have been pent up energy in some way that they didn't realize was like repressed emotions, or a story that's needing to be voiced, or a history that needs to be revealed. And yeah, so I'm so grateful for you saying yes, being the yes lady that you are, and sharing just such a small portion, I believe, of what your beautiful story is. And I'd be really interested in having more of these chats with you, whether it's an episode base or whether it's just it's offline and we're messaging or calling each other, because I would really love to know more about the person that you've been and the person that you're continuing to evolve to be, and your kids as well. I want to know like what their music is. So
Mhm. I think so too. I'd love to chat with you more anytime, Lauren. This has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you just a little bit, and hear what you're up to. I'm gonna share in the chat. I can share in the chat box here
cool.
my son's music on Spotify, I guess is what I use. I don't know.
I love
It's
Spotify too.
good. You can find them on all of the tools, but this is just one that's easy for me to find. And let's copy just his. There's an album dropping on the 16th, but they dropped a song last Friday, and it's already had like, I don't know, 10,000 people have listened to it or more, or 14,000 people have listened to it. His name
Wow.
is Connor Gaines, and it's his first pop album. He's comes out of the blues, and he's a very spiritual young man as well. And this song is called Light Shine In, and it's just a
Oh,
gorgeous song. So I hope you take a listen to it and let him know what you think. You know?
where, for
Yeah.
one, I want
Yeah.
people to know where they can find you, and then I'll, after
Oh,
this chat, I'll ask you where I can find Connor's details to get in touch, because I'll listen to the song straight after here.
cool. And social media, it's Atlas Yoga. And we're working on a couple of projects right now. One is the Atlas Yoga Teachers Association, as we're working on kind of creating a forum where we have a repository of a really affordable continuing age education and resources and all that sort of thing. But also, one of the things that people have found me for in the past is they go off to a yoga teacher training and they come back and they've taught one yoga class. And then it's like, okay, they don't feel confident teaching. So they end up finding me and coming to our studio and teaching with me, giving them like I come in and I support them and they teach and I give them feedback, and we bring our other teachers in training in to give them feedback. And we've really supported a lot of people in our community in that function. And I think now with the online, people are getting their certificates online and still with a limited amount of teaching. So the Atlas Teachers Association would be there to kind of support them in that transition from their training into being good teachers. And so that's one thing we're working on. And this is a plug for something I think is really important. And I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like yet, Lauren, but in the last year, I found out that in the state of Alabama, which is where I was born originally, yoga is prohibited in schools. And you ready for this? The main reason it's prohibited? This came out of the mouth of a government official. It could lead to Hinduism.
How
I
is
was
that
like,
even, what is
so,
that?
so I was like, so you're worried about kids practicing yoga because they might become Hindus. And I thought that I have got to do something about this. So one of my
Yes.
goals is to become active in the education process, at least in the state of Alabama,
Yeah.
and make sure that parents, children, government officials are educated about what yoga is, what Hinduism is.
Yeah.
Like, what is Hinduism? It's actually not something to be afraid of. And there might actually be people in the state of Alabama who are Hindus. And can you imagine how offended they might be if the reason that yoga is not in schools is because you might become Hindu because you do it? Anyway, so that's like getting to share that is important. And I think that we want to, anywhere in the world that there's ignorance, we want to shed light. And that's just
the
one particular
halo.
thing. Realized recently that maybe I need to be active a little more than I have been and be part of bringing that light into that particular little spot.
That's so
So
beautiful, Denise. And I'm going to include your details in the show notes so people will be able to find you either on your personal Facebook, if that's okay with you, but otherwise they can find you at Atlas Yoga. So there's a website for that. There's an email, I think, and there'll be your Instagram as well. And if there's any way that I can support you in putting that message out there, I know that you're looking to do that in Alabama, but
we need the whole world shining the light
yeah.
in, though, right? Yeah.
And it's something that I'm hugely passionate about as well, of like starting young. So, you know, you doing the work and then having kids is like, you know, it's natural infusion process. And if we can get that into schools, or somehow weave the message of yoga in there without it, you know, being some sort of woo-woo thing that people are scared of. Like, you know, that article that came out, my mind immediately goes to, I want to ask him what his story is behind Hinduism, because that's come from somewhere. You don't just say that. And
what you think, yeah, an educated person.
right. Yeah. And so then when people have power without knowledge, which is what I was going to actually say before, which is why people can have power trips in yoga or whatever they do. When they have power without knowledge, it's a really, really dangerous mix. And so when people have such power and they influence people, their words, other people will repeat their words and they'll believe it, because that person's so influential or powerful. And they won't even look into the information themselves, because they'll just believe it as stat. And it's like, no, we need to be our own responsible investigators, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And maybe together we can make a difference.
We're doing something. The halo effect's out there shining light. So let's continue to shine the light together. And yeah, I feel like everything's together. There's no part of this path that's alone. So thank you for joining me here. I'm gonna I'll end the recording, but if you want to just stay on for a quick few minutes afterwards, and we'll part ways before we meet again, Beauty.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you all for listening. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the listeners who have been supporting me here on the Halo Effect. And I hope that you've really been getting as much value as I have been with the people that I've been connecting with. And maybe it's just something that, you know, makes you feel a little bit closer to me, because I know that I have moved away from some of you in Tassie, and some family who's back in Queensland, or maybe there's people that I haven't been able to reach overseas. So that's filling my soul up with a great deal of beautiful energy. And yeah, for all the people who have been getting back with feedback and support and constructive criticism, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I continue to get excited to serve you and give value. And so thank you so much today again, Denise. I've really enjoyed today's chat.
Me too. Thank you, Lauren.